It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest today on the end of the day with Ray, and I'm super honored and excited to have Paul here. Today we're going to talk to Paul Boardman. Paul Boardman was one time a GOP nominee for Congress. Paul is the chairman of DeCouple China, and Paul has been out there talking to our governors, talking to our senators, talking to our congressmen and women about the threats of China, trade with China, China technology. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're one of those friends of mine that sells supplies and service print equipment, we know the big story, probably the biggest story in our industry's history. 9-Star, the owners of Lexmark, banned by DHS. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot going on in the world, but at the end of the day, we as America, we in the free world, all over the free world, need to pay attention to the threats of the Chinese Communist Party. Paul, it's super great to have you on. I'm super honored to have you here. Why don't you just do a quick introduction of who you are so the audience can kind of get a feel for who Paul is.
Great. Thank you, Ray. I really appreciate being on the show. I started the PAC 2 years ago. I started on the CCP trail 4 years ago when it was popular to do business with China. My background, I worked for Senator Lugar, did a stint with President Reagan back in the day, was a GOP nominee for Congress against Waxman back in 94 and 96, West Los Angeles. The bottom line is the CCP is obviously a massive threat, and we have to completely decouple from the Chinese Communist Party and create tremendous opportunities here and redo our supply chain. So it's a real opportunity for companies to do just that.
Well, you know, Paul, our industry, the print sector, I know you can't pay attention to every single vertical all over the world, but in our sector, obviously 9-Star getting slapped by the DHS around regarding the Uyghur slave labor, if you will. I mean, this is a big, serious issue. And, I don't think sometimes, Americans, or I would just say capitalism in general, can put greed ahead of principles, can put dollars ahead of principles. And I just want our friends to realize this is a very serious issue. And I know you probably have some experience with this. And, just share some thoughts of what the Senate and what the Congress and what the governors you speak to on a daily basis, what are some of the real issues with American companies buying products that are on a banned list, if you will?
Well, not a warning to American companies, but just a heads up that whether you're a Republican senator or a Democratic senator, or you're in the House, or you're in the Assembly or U.S. Senate, or the Senate in a state, or a governor, even California, even some of the states that you wouldn't think, they're marching forward together to deal with the CCP threat, meaning the CCP 30 families that run the Chinese Communist Party. They really truly are amoral. They are Hitler, Stalin, Mao rolled into one. Mm-hmm. We are Western civilization with the rule of law. They don't have any rule of law when it comes to doing any kind of business. So slavery, whatever it is, they'll do it. And if you want that to come here, they can just go ahead and try to continue doing business with the CCP. It's not going to work because our government is one way or another going to move forward, whether we are the first to decouple completely from China and go on the offensive, or China decouples from us. It's happening. So as long as China continues to be the aggressor that they are, you need to change your business model.
Is there any help out there for, right now I've started looking into 9-Star. 9-Star is this, huge Chinese company that ran around and gobbled up a lot of the print sector business. They bought Lexmark, which was headquartered in Lexington, Kentucky back in 2016 is a great example. But when you go into their consolidated financial reports, it looks to me like it's a big old shell game. I mean, they got all kinds of subsidiaries of subsidiaries of subsidiaries. When the DHS puts a company on a list, do they actually go through those financials of these companies and take out all the rhetoric so that you can't have somebody say, oh, it doesn't apply to us? We're just a subsidiary, so what happened to the parent company doesn't apply to us. I mean, how does a layperson realize the threats involved with some of these companies, or some of the companies that are part of this company buried in a shell game, if you will?
Well, this is very important. This is national defense. This is intelligence. This gets into espionage. This is a country that wants to destroy America and destroy freedom on earth. So the United States is going to respond to that, and we should respond to that. So in the intel community and the defense community going back 10 years, they were fully aware of the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. Now you're just seeing China push this aggression to the next level, and they have. So they'll weaponize anything. So doing business with the Chinese Communist Party, you could end up being sanctioned by both sides, being in the middle. It makes no sense. You're going to have to find a different business model. You're going to have to, and here's the point. You may think you can go to Mexico. You may think you can go to India, but they're coercible too. They're more coercible than we are. So the defensive position is for America to come back and figure out a way to make it here with new technologies, new capabilities, hit some price points. Sure, there's going to be inflation, but right now we don't have a market. We don't have a stock market based on investment. It's basically just financing, going back and forth between two countries talking about interest rates. And those numbers in China are fake anyway because they're done by, well, they're not fake, they're slavery numbers. So we don't operate under those kinds of numbers. So it kind of gives you a perspective. If you're doing business with China and they're using slave labor, you are complicit. And I would expect the federal government to be looking into everything in your background because the defense of our country is on the line.
Well, I would imagine that there'll be a lot of scrutiny going towards Lexmark. Of course, I'm digging through it as much as I can, but at the end of the day, I think the country needs to understand this is a threat. It isn't just because there's a competitor trying to knock out Lexmark, which are some of the rumors and nonsense. But when the Department of Homeland Security bans a PRC company, I think that's a pretty big issue that we all need to pay attention to. What's the climate like right now, Paul, in the Senate? I know we got Marco Rubio down there in Florida that's been a big advocate.
Great job. He's doing a great job.
We have governors around the country that are putting some pretty hefty, pretty close to banning Chinese technology from being delivered into government offices. I mean, what are you hearing around that?
Well, all that has to happen. It is happening. The question is, how is it going to happen? You're seeing legislation roll up. We're plugging holes at this point. The big debate now is you'll see one side saying decoupling and the other side says de-risking. And you saw Janet Yellen say, decoupling is disastrous. Well, maybe in the short term, you're going to see incredible inflation. Sure, a steak will go to $200. Well, I will get into the cattle raising business if it goes to $200. And we'll figure it out. It'll be a marketplace. The market will land where it's going to land. The point is, let the market work. And when you let the market work, the biggest incentive is to cut the trade with China. That's what, 700 billion, and the deficit is around 500 billion. And we're just going to have to figure that out and use our capabilities. We have all this incredible research, R&D we've done, technology, integration capabilities. We need to go to the next level, build a growth 10% economy. And we need all hands on deck to do it. So I really trust the ingenuity of the American people to do that and to move capital into value once there is an actual marketplace. But as long as we're trading with China, and the Senate and the House, they know that. They're all poised to decide, maybe a presidential contender will bring it up, but that debate is going to happen, and it's going to happen very quickly. China has said, they're mobilizing. You have to understand, people don't get this, but it's not out there as much as it should be. They're mobilizing their army, their conscription centers in China. They're moving to a position of opening a new front in Asia, whether they attack Taiwan or they do something else. But they have a lot of things that they can do, and they from day one they have been behind Russia. So they did very large coal and oil deals, and they coordinated the time of the Russian invasion. So the two sides are squaring off very clearly, and China's made no bones about it. If America continues down the course that we're down, we continue sanctioning them, banning them, trying to stand up for our values and who we are as a country and free world. There will be a price to pay, and we continue down that road. That's one that we have not flinched at all. We've continued to move down that road. I've always been an advocate for a quicker fix, meaning just decouple from China, put the incentives in, let the market work. There's going to be a dislocation instead of a long, painful process where we do something to them, they do something to us, and they do it 10 times stronger than us, and then what happens is we're not putting our factories together. So, and we're not all hands on deck. It really does call for an all hands on deck moment to take care of the Chinese Communist Party threat.
And we've done it before. The free world's all gotten together.
We can do it. If you hear that we can't do it, that's just propaganda. Yeah. That's just Chinese propaganda.
No, I agree.
Our people will do it.
We did it with we did it pretty well with our friends in Europe, with our friends in Asia. So we can do these things, and I think that when I see what's going on with DHS right now, and as they start to ban companies, which obviously brings awareness, so that's a good thing. But the problem with that is, what do we all do? Wait till somebody gets caught, turn our back to what we probably know is going on, figure out how we're going to buy more from a supplier before they get banned. I mean, we got to make some decisions as the free world.
We need some clear rules here, and we're not getting clear rules from the top. That's for sure. That's the real problem.
Yeah.
And the Senate can do only so much. Frankly, CCP is so aggressive that we can't plug the holes. We can't write the legislation right now, debate it, and enact it. So it's across the board, and that's how they've metastasized on all levels out there, whether it be the Uyghur situation or attacking Taiwan, whatever, fentanyl at the borders, all of it is a full-out implementation of a plan that they've put together. Now, having said that, they're tactical. Don't think that they're the smart, wise Chinese that everyone has been talking about. The CCP, the families, we're talking about the 30 families that run the CCP. They are completely amoral. They will weaponize anything. They will do anything. If they had a designer drug that would kill all 2-year-olds, they'd send it to us, and then they'd say, gee, you want us to do the 3-year-olds now? Put up our Chinese flag in place of your American flag. They would do that. So you have to understand where we are with this group that's running the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, Paul, tell us a little bit about DeCouple China, and so how our friends can reach out to you, or may at least get on your blog and pay attention to what's going on around it, because I know you're well connected at the Senate level of Congress with our governors, and so give us a little insight there.
Well, after starting this 4 years ago, I had a curiosity, and I started to dedicate my time and effort to it. There were a couple things that became clear to me. The MO, the modus operandi of how the CCP works, that's really critical to understand. They're different than Russia and the jihadists, so that is key. Because right now in your industry, if you knew their MO, you would see their footprint, because they truly are everywhere throughout and integrated throughout our society, and that would help you defend from it. So I just started publishing the Boardman report, which publishes articles from around the world. It helps people understand where the threats are coming from. You can see that at DecoupleChina.org. Also, I've worked on a lot of issues, including the farmland issue. We've rolled that up on the state level, and now it's on the federal level. So rest assured, I'm at it, and there are a lot more people joining this effort. So the next phase is really a counteroffensive to the last China offensive, which was they wanted to do a charm campaign before the balloon. But the balloon was a mistake, and that wasn't good for them. So now their charm campaign has to bring Jamie Dimon and Elon Musk in a couple of weeks ago. They've turned them into lobbyists for them by giving them some market share. But remember, they giveth and taketh away. They can take it away at any time. You invest in their company, your assets, you put your money over there. Right now, you probably will lose it. And most people in the Senate and the House and even the federal government, the White House, know that. So we're just trying to prepare, and both sides are trying to make a decision of how to move forward. But we need very clear rules of the game for our companies and for our capital to know where and to build our supply chain and defend our country.
Well, I would say, Paul, you obviously said some scary things that'll scare some people, and I think what I always tell people, it's like anything else. Everybody wants to hear that everything's okay, and so when they hear something that's a little bit brutal or sounds a little bit bombastic, well, it's not going to be that bad. But at the end of the day, it's up to everybody. It's up to all of us to do our research, to talk to folks like you, to talk to folks around the world that are all concerned about the same things. And the concerns we all share, we do not want to be communist here in the free world, and we do not want the Communist Chinese Party to get more powerful than they already are. And we gave them a lot of our intellect, we gave them a lot of our science, we gave them a lot of our companies. And at the end of the day, I agree. It's time that we take some of that back and we readjust and we pay attention. Paul, I'm going to have you on again because it was great talking to you, and I know this conversation, especially in our industry, the print industry, I sent you some information, so I know you're going through that. But I'd love to get your opinion on some of that in another episode. Because, Paul, everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.